Hey, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be doing a book haul. I haven't done a book haul in a number of weeks now, so this one is a rather large book haul because recently I've been buying so many books, I've been getting sent so many books. Alright, so jumping into the book haul, one of the first things I wanted to show you is all of the books I've recently picked up from Book of the Month and Aardvark. Both Book of the Month and Aardvark are book subscription services that I'm a customer of, and I recently got a haul of 4 books from Book of the Month and 4 books from Aardvark. From Book of the Month, I recently picked up Seduction Theory as well as Aftertaste. These were both of the books that I picked for the month of August. Seduction Theory is a book that I actually recently just read and I really enjoyed it, but this book seems to be getting a lot of really low reviews, so I don't know if I would widely recommend this one, but I really liked it. And then Aftertaste is one that I added on because I heard really great things about this one, because this one is like a really unique ghost story where this character can like taste the flavors of a ghost's favorite food, and then he discovers that he can like reunite people with their loved ones for one last meal. It just sounded like it was going to be so interesting, and I actually started reading this book. I got about like 50 pages into it. So this is one that I'm still currently reading, but it is such an interesting concept. And then for the month of September, I decided to pick up Play Nice by Rachel Harrison, as well as The Heartbreak Hotel. Play Nice is a horror book, which I was so excited to see Book of the Month finally have a horror selection, so you know I had to pick up this one. And I also very recently just read this book for one of the reading vlogs I'm working on this month, so you will very soon see my thoughts on this one. And then I also picked up The Heartbreak Hotel because this is one that I had never heard of before it was a Book of the Month pick, but it looked like it was gonna be so cute, and I love the fall atmosphere on this cover. And this one is also about this bed and breakfast for the brokenhearted. It just sounds like it could be very cute, so I hope that it will be. And then from Aardvark, I recently picked up 4 different things. 2 of the books that I picked up that I've already read include What Hunger by Catherine Dang, as well as Coffin Moon. These are 2 books that I very recently just read, and I absolutely loved What Hunger. Like, this was a 5-star horror book for me. I'm obsessed. I think if you enjoyed The Eyes Are the Best Part, then this is one that I would definitely recommend reading. And then Coffin Moon also ended up being a really great time. I gave this book 4 stars. This one is like a vampire horror, and it just had this really great like classic vampire feel to it because it takes place in the 1970s in Oregon. Both of these had really great vibes though, and I'm always so impressed by Aardvark's horror picks. I feel like they're always picking some of my favorite horror books of the year as selections, so that's great. And then from Aardvark, I also recently picked up both The Hounding as well as Buffalo Hunter Hunter. I am a little bit nervous about this one because Stephen Graham Jones has been such a hit or miss author for me in the past, but this is one that I still want to try out because it's his take on like a vampire book. But I have heard that this one is very like historical and it's very slow, so like I am kind of scared to read this one, but I'm glad that I own it. And then also The Hounding is one that just sounds so weird and so interesting. This one says the Crucible meets the Virgin Suicides in this haunting debut about 5 sisters in a small village in 18th century England whose neighbors are convinced they're turning into dogs. Like, what the heck is that about? I don't know. I love how short this book is too. It's on the shorter side. I can't wait to read this one. I'm hoping to get to this one before the end of the year. Next up is that Plume Books ended up sending me a copy of I Was Feeling Epic, which is an oral history of the Vampire Diaries. This is one that I actually did read in the month of September, and I would highly recommend, oh my god, if you're a fan of this show, The Vampire Diaries or the originals, I think you absolutely need to read this because it was so interesting. I mean, look at the amount of tabs that I made throughout this book. Like, it's actually ridiculous. And this book is really cool because it's a non-fiction book that's told from the creators, the writers, the producers, and the actors themselves about what was actually going on behind the scenes of the show and like why certain decisions were made and like why Nina Dobrev actually left the show. There were so many interesting things in this book that I didn't know as a fan, and so I loved my experience reading this book and I highly recommend checking it out. And then Flatiron Books ended up sending me an early copy of My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. This one is actually coming out in the month of January 2026, so like, oh my god, I can't believe I have my hands on this right now. I'm so excited because Alice Feeney is like one of my favorite thriller writers, you know, writing today, and I don't even need to know what this book is about to know that it's one of my most anticipated books of next year. This one just says 1 house, 1 husband, 2 women, someone is lying. I'm also really excited for this though because my friend Brittany actually read this copy like the last time that she was here for the 24-hour readathon we did together. She ended up reading this one while she was here and she ended up really liking it a lot, so I'm like, oh my god, because the last Alice Feeney wasn't the biggest win for me. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Beautiful Ugly, but this one I'm so excited about. I can't wait. Okay, and then next up, Macmillan ended up sending me a copy of The Once and Future Me, which this one is like a sci-fi book that just sounds so right up my alley and like so unique, so fun. I mean, the fact that this book is pitching itself as Dark Matter meets Girl Interrupted, like, I'm sorry, Dark Matter, pause. Dark Matter is like one of my favorite books of all time. It says this is a gripping psychological thriller about a young woman teetering on the edge of reality. This one is taking place in Virginia in 1954, and it says when a woman wakes on a patient transport bus arriving at a state psychiatric hospital, she remembers nothing of her life before that moment. But then towards the end of this, it says now she's sure of nothing, caught between two realities, believe in the future and she might save the world, believe in her husband and doctor's plans for her treatment and she might save herself. Like, what do you mean? I'm just so curious about this. I definitely want to try and read this one before the end of the year because it sounds absolutely bonkers and like I need it in my life. Okay, and then next up, Atria ended up sending me so many books. So many of my most anticipated releases of these next couple of months and next year are published by Atria. For example, this one, oh my god, is this A Cry for Help by Emily Austen. This one is an arc that they sent me. This one comes out January 13th next year. Emily Austen is definitely somebody who I consider to be like one of my favorite writers. It says that this one is a hilarious, heartbreaking novel about a good marriage, bad mistakes, and the enduring power of your local library. It sounds great. I don't need to know anymore because Emily Austen is an author that I will always read from. And so I'm really looking forward to this. I can't wait to read it. They also ended up sending The Future Saints by Ashley Winstead. This is another ARC copy. This one's coming out January 20th. There's a lot of good stuff coming out in January next year. And this one kind of sounds like it has the potential to be like the next like Daisy Jones and the Six kind of a vibe because I think this one's about a band that's called The Future Saints and it takes place in like the glamour of Los Angeles, which is definitely the vibes that I'm getting from this cover. I'm just so curious to read this, you know, because Ashley Winstead, if you don't know that name, she's actually the author of like In My Dreams I Hold a Knife and like a lot of different thrillers. And so I'm so curious to see her write a book like this. I also just really love books that are about music and about like the forming of a band and stuff like that. So I think this is going to be so great. They also ended up sending this copy of Follow My Voice. This one's a book that just published in September. This one says that it follows a 19-year-old who's battling agoraphobia as she forms an unexpected connection with the host of her favorite college radio show. And it says, can you fall in love with someone you've never seen? Can a voice become your anchor in the storm? It sounds like it's gonna be really hard hitting, but also like really cute. I also love this cover, by the way. I think it's so adorable and I love how much purple is on it. And then all the other books from Atria are new release thrillers that all sound so unique and so interesting. One of the ones that sounds so interesting is this one called Nothing Tastes As Good. This one is an arc that's coming out in March next year, so this is a very, very, very advanced copy. This is from the same author as The Paleontologist, and it says he returns with a spine-tingling new thriller about a weight loss treatment with potentially murderous side effects. That sounds horrifying. There's also The Briars by Sarah Crouch. This one is another thriller arc that's coming out in January. This one is from the same author as Middletide, and it says she returns with a lush and atmospheric thriller about a young woman whose job as a game warden puts her in the path of a murderer in a small town eager to protect its own. This one is described as a captivating literary thriller, and that sounds interesting. I haven't actually read the other book by this author yet, but both of these authors' books are on my TBR, so hopefully I can get to this one soon. Also have this one called Pinky Swear by Danielle Gerard. This one is coming out in February next year. This one is about these two women who have been best friends since middle school, but they drifted apart after a tragedy derailed their senior year. And then it says, but when Mara shows up on Lexi's doorstep 16 years after fleeing an abusive husband, Lexi takes her in without question. And it says Mara offers to become her surrogate and she agrees, but then 4 days before the baby is due, she disappears. And Lexi is shocked, but there must be something wrong. She would never just leave with the unborn child, right? This sounds crazy and unhinged, and I can't wait to read it. And then we have this one that's called Such Sheltered Lives, and this is another one coming out January 20th. This one takes place at this really glamorous rehabilitation center. It says Rush's recovery promises its wealthy guests the utmost discretion, but when a body is discovered, how long can the center's secrets stay buried? It says the darkest secrets may lie in the center's own history, and not every guest will be checking out alive. Sounds like it has the potential to be very entertaining. And then we have one of my most anticipated, which is Adrift by Will Dean. This one is coming out February 17th next year, and this is from the same author as the last one and The Chamber. It says that this one is a high-tension thriller about a family's descent into darkness, and it says this is perfect for fans of Lisa Jewell, which that is exciting. We're following these characters Peggy and Drew, who are both aspiring writers, and it says they move to an isolated canal boat with their smart and sensitive 14-year-old son. But it says as Drew becomes frustrated by his wife's sudden writing success, he moves their boat further and further away from civilization and safety. What the heck is that about? Can we trust this man? I don't know, but I can't wait to read it. And then this one is possibly like one of my most anticipated books from Atria, and that is The Wasp Trap. This one is another thriller that just sounds like it's gonna be so much fun. I've been hearing great things about this one. It says a dinner party in a beautiful Notting Hill townhouse turns into a sinister game as 6 old friends are forced to spill their darkest secrets or else. It says alternating between the past and the present with a colorful ensemble of characters. The Wasp Trap is a page-turning thrill ride that is perfect for fans of Lucy Foley and Alice Feeney. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this. I just know it. I'm definitely gonna try to read this book in the month of October because I can't wait. Okay, next up, Wednesday Books ended up sending me a copy of My Roommate from Hell, and this is one that's gonna be publishing in the month of November, and I'm actually so excited for this one. This one actually is a young adult kind of like romance book, but I'm so excited to read this because the premise sounds so adorable. And I also have read a book from this author before that I really loved. This author published this book called The Love Interest like so many years ago, and I was a really big fan of that book actually. Like I thought it was so fun. This one says it's a swoon-worthy YA rom-com about an ambitious college student whose plans get derailed when he discovers his roommate is the Prince of Hell. So, you know, this has a lot of tropes that I usually enjoy in romance books, like the roommates to lovers trope, but then also like enemies to lovers. I mean, I'm guessing it's gonna be enemies because he's like the devil. It just says it's a rom-com with a magical twist. Think just one bed, but that bed is in hell surrounded by fire. Like that sounds like a fun time for me. Next up, Hatchet Book Group ended up sending me a copy of Midnight Timetable by Bora Chung. And this is one that I'm highly anticipating because Bora Chung is the same author as Cursed Bunny, which was one of my favorite collections of short stories. Like I thought Cursed Bunny was so interesting and I still think about it to this day. And this is one that sounds so unique and so interesting, and this one's actually translated from Korean. It says that this author returns with a novel in ghost stories set in a mysterious research center that houses cursed objects. And it says when the institute's newest employee arrives for their first night shift, they begin to see why some workers don't last that long on the job. Things and people seem to change in these dimly lit halls, where those who open the wrong door might find it's disappeared behind them, or the echoing footsteps they're running from are their own. Not everyone is suited to the work of protecting the institute's strange artifacts. This sounds like it's gonna be so weird. It says this is equal parts bone-chilling, wryly funny, and deeply political, which are three things that I appreciate. So I cannot wait to read this. Also, this one is very short. It's less than 200 pages, and the font looks absolutely ginormous in this. I can't wait to check out this one. I hope I love this as much as I loved Cursed Bunny. Okay, and then next up, Penguin Random House also sent me a number of things that I'm really excited about. One of the things that they sent that I've already read is Famous by Blake Crouch. This is one that I just read in a reading vlog that I posted very recently, but I gave this book 5 stars. I love this so freaking much. This one is a very hard one to pitch, you know, like genre-wise, but this one has some very dark humor, and we're following this main character, Lance, who like right at the start of this book, he loses his job, and he's always been told that he looks exactly identical to this actor named James, who is like a very huge movie star, and he's a very successful actor. And so after he loses his job, he decides that he's gonna start pretending to be this actor. And it's like he literally goes to New York, he goes on Broadway, and like people think that he's James. This book is absolutely insane. It's unhinged, and I absolutely loved this. And it was such a quick read too. It was like less than 200 pages. This one's also getting a movie adaptation with Zac Efron, so like I can't wait to see that. But this is exactly the kind of like unhinged ridiculousness that I love to read about. I thought this book was so entertaining. They also ended up sending me a copy of Diana Says Yes, which this is the 3rd book in this series. I really loved the first book in this series, but then I wasn't the biggest fan of the second one, but I still wanted to read the 3rd one anyways because I wanted to see the conclusion and like what ends up happening to these characters. But something that I am really loving about this series is the way that it writes about like women and their sexuality and their experiences. And I also love the fact that these books are so short. Like this one's only 200 pages, and all of the books are very short. They kind of read like little novellas, which is something that I really like about the series, so I can't wait to read this final book soon. Another one they sent that I'm so excited about is this one called Ruins by Amy Taylor. This one just says 3 lives, 1 summer, and an affair that will unravel everything. It says that a couple arrives in Greece to house sit for a friend. It says their plans take an unexpected turn when they meet Lena, an enigmatic young Greek woman who presents an opportunity for them to explore their relationship in uncharted and excitingly risky ways. It says that Ruins delivers the drama of a modern Greek tragedy while exposing the tensions between privilege and power, desire and intimacy. This sounds like it's gonna be some messy shit. I love stuff like this that's about like a couple kind of getting involved with like a third person and then how that like messes up the dynamic and changes everything. I am really fascinated by books with that kind of a concept. I also just got the audiobook checked out from my library for this one, so I'm hoping that I can read this one in the next couple of weeks because it sounds so unique and so fun. And then they also ended up sending me 3 different romance books. One of the ones they sent is this one called People Watching. This one is from the same author as Out on a Limb, which I recently just read for a video that I did, and I loved Out on a Limb. I gave it 5 stars. And this is actually one that I started and I was trying to get into it. I got about 50 pages in and I wasn't really vibing with it right away, but this is one that I can see myself coming back to in the future and like trying it again. I just don't know if I was in the right like headspace for this one when I started it. Then they also sent this one called Uncharmed. This one just has the most adorable fall vibes on this cover. Like I can't even take it. It says a perfect perfect witch must learn to embrace imperfection and live for herself in the spellbinding, cozy fantasy sprinkled with love, laughter, and magic. Okay, see, I was misinformed. I thought this was a romance, but apparently it's a cozy fantasy, which I am actually okay with. I feel like out of all the fantasy things, I think cozy fantasy is something that I'm the most comfortable with reading, or like the thing that I like the most. I guess I'm more of the person that like I'd rather read a cozy fantasy than a cozy mystery. So this does sound like something I could enjoy. And then they also sent this one, It's Different This Time, which I am so excited they sent this one because this is definitely one of my most anticipated romances. And I think that I'm going to actually take this book with me when I go to New York, and I'm going to try to read this one because this book takes place in New York, and it's also like very fall vibes just from what I'm getting from the cover. It says, in this sweeping second chance romance, a twist of fate forces two former roommates back into their beloved New York City brownstone, where they must confront the events that led to their estrangement. So I love that so much. I feel like this will be the best thing for me to read while I'm in New York. And you know, as mentioned, I do love the roommates to lovers trope. It's like one of my favorites of all time. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a new favorite for me. Okay, and then next up, Berkeley ended up sending me two different books. One of them is The Vanishing Place, which this one is a new thriller, and it has a very green and orange cover. This one says, a child who ran from the forest and a woman who must return to it. It says a young girl stumbles out of the bush into a tiny New Zealand town, and it says no one's ever seen her before, but the old timers insist that she looks just like a girl who disappeared 20 years earlier. I love the idea of reading a thriller book that takes place in New Zealand because it's been such a long time since I've read a book that takes place in New Zealand, and that sounds like a really great atmosphere. And then they also sent this one called Dead and Breakfast. Dude, this one sounds so cute because it involves vampires. The front little blurb on this says, come for the vampires, stay for the scones. Like, that's hilarious. And this one says, the new vampires in town are sinking their teeth into solving a murder. We follow this cute little vampire couple named Arthur and Sal, and it says they're ready to settle down, so they open a bed and breakfast in the town of Trident Falls, Oregon. And it says trouble finds them when the mayor is discovered dead with 2 puncture wounds in his neck. And then it says, with the help of a werewolf barista, the elven town coroner, and a very human city manager, they need to prove they aren't literally out for blood by catching a killer. This one just sounds like it's gonna be a silly, goofy time, and I am just so in the mood to read vampire things lately. I know this kind of sounds like it's gonna have like a cozy mystery vibe to it, which it very well might, but also because it involves like vampires and werewolves, I thought it would be extra fun. So I can't wait to read this one. It sounds like it'll be the perfect thing to read this fall. And then Avon Books ended up sending me 2 different romance books as well. One of them is this one, The Honeycrisp Orchard Inn, and this is one that I actually did just read for a reading vlog, and I was not the biggest fan of this one, sadly. I mean, this one did have really good, you know, like fall atmosphere and like those kind of vibes, so like at least it had that, but the romance in this was just not really giving for me at all, and it's not really something that I would recommend, unfortunately. But then they also sent this one that's called When I Picture You, and this one is a sapphic romance about these 2 women. It says one of them is pop star Lola Gray, who is supposed to be the songwriter of her generation, but she doesn't feel like it anymore. And I guess she used to know this other woman named Renee Feldman. They used to know each other somehow, and then it says when Lola sees Renee at her sister's wedding, everything changes. Lola's teenage crush on the fearless lesbian next door was so overwhelming, it secretly inspired her debut album. Oh my gosh, and it gets better because this girl Renee is also a director, and so it says Lola is trying to make this documentary alongside her new album, but the director they hired is a creep, and she needs to replace him, and filming starts in a week. Oh my god, this sounds like my dream premise. Like, I just love the idea of this. Could this be the sapphic book of my dreams? Holy shit, I'm excited. I think it sounds great. Okay, and then next up, I needed to take a second to thank my friend Kelly so much for sending me a copy of We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad. Kelly was so kind enough to send me her ARC copy of this book, and this one is actually like the sequel and the prequel of the book Bunny, which is one of my favorite books, and I'm just so excited but also so nervous and so scared to read this one. And this one says Frankenstein meets Heathers. I think the reason why I'm so nervous about this one is because this book is long, dude. It's almost 500 pages, and because it's, you know, a sequel and a prequel to one of my favorite books, and I'm not sure if that book needs a sequel or a prequel, but here we are. I'm still gonna be reading this book anyway, and I'm so excited. I'm actually gonna be reading this one in the month of November because I'm gonna be joining one of my friends for their book club for this book, so we're gonna be discussing it, and I can't wait, and I really hope I love this one. Okay, and then St. Martin's ended up sending me 2 different books. One of them that I'm so excited about is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This is actually from the same author as as Divine Rivals, which no, I have not yet read Divine Rivals, but this one sounds like it could be really interesting. I actually don't know if this book is connected to like the Divine Rivals books, so you'll have to let me know if I could read this one as like a standalone thing. I mean, this book does lean a little bit more like fantasy, but this sounds like exactly the kind of like fantasy type of romance thing that I would really enjoy. It says Matilda is the youngest goddess of her clan, but the gods will kill for power, and Matilda holds a secret she must hide from even her dearest allies. And it says there is a mortal who dreams of her, though they have never met her in the waking world. 10 years ago, Vincent wrote to Matilda on the darkest night of his life, begging the goddess he befriended in dreams to help him. His request went unanswered, and Vincent became a hardened, irreverent lord of the river who has long forgotten Matilda until she comes tumbling into his bedroom window with a letter for him. I don't know, this sounds like one of those romances where like they're just fated to be together, and that sounds like something that I could really enjoy. I also think this specific edition is one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. Like, look at this cover, the way that the gold reflects like that, and then boom, look at these end papers, and then boom, look at this. Like, oh my god, this is stunning. Like, wow. They really put the maximum amount of effort into this. Like, this is one of the most beautiful books I've ever seen in my life. I also really do love the black sprayed edges. I just think it looks so cool. So I'm really hoping to read this one soon because it sounds like it's gonna be so good. They also ended up sending me a copy of With Stars in Her Eyes by Andy Burke. This one also sounds like it could be the sapphic book of my dreams because it's a cute sapphic romance between these two women, and one of them is a bookseller at this bookstore. Dude, just this cover alone, like the way the bookshelves are all like lit up behind them, like, oh my god. See, the only reason why I'm afraid to read this one is because I've read 2 books from this author that I thought were just fine or like not really good. So I am a little bit nervous for this author's writing because I am starting to feel like maybe this author just isn't for me. But this is the book that I'm willing to give one more chance for this author, and if I don't like this one, then I'm probably not going to read from this author anymore. And then Harper Collins ended up sending me 2 different books. One of them is The Merge by Grace Walker, which this is one that I actually did read for a reading vlog. I will have it linked down below, but it's the reading vlog that I did where I read books that are specifically about like memories and dreams and things like that. And this is a sci-fi book that is absolutely going to be in my top favorite books of this year. Like, the way that I can't stop thinking about this book is actually insane. And I'm so glad that they sent me a copy of this one because when I read it, I actually just read it as an ARC on my Kindle. So I'm so happy that I now own a copy of this book because I will be raving about this book for the rest of the year. I guarantee that. This story is mostly about this procedure called the merge, where 2 minds can merge into one body. And this book is especially unique and interesting because we're following a mother and daughter duo, and the mother finds out that she has Alzheimer's and they want to merge both of their minds together to see if that cures her of that illness. This book is absolutely insane and I loved it so much. And then they also sent a copy of Sweet Heat, which this one is a romance book that's from the same author as Honey and Spice. And Honey and Spice is a book that's still on my TBR after all these years. Like, that's definitely still one that I plan to read. I actually didn't realize though at the time that I think that this book is actually the sequel to Honey and Spice. So I don't know, I would love to know from anybody that's read like both Honey and Spice and this one, like, can I read this one as a standalone or do I have to read Honey and Spice first? Like, I really want to know before I jump into this one because I don't want to like screw things up. But this one says 2 exes, 1 summer wedding, 0 chance of escaping the heat. Oh my gosh, this sounds like it could have been the perfect book to read in the summer, and now I'm really kicking myself because it's the fall. But this sounds like it's going to be the perfect summer romance, and like, wow, this book is so long. This book is almost 500 pages. That's wild. Like, I really hope that there's a reason for this book being this long. But I can't wait to read this one, and I'm probably going to have to read Honey and Spice before I read this, but I'm still happy that I have this one. Okay, and then this last stack of books are all books that I've bought for myself recently. I bought a lot of these books at like different thrift stores and like indie bookstores, and also I got some from Pango. So a few of the books that I recently bought off of Pango include King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. I was able to find somebody selling this book of the month copy for like pretty cheap on Pango, so I decided to pick up this one because S.A. Cosby is an author that I've really enjoyed in the past. Like, Razorblade Tears is one of my all-time favorite thrillers, and this one is like his newest thriller that just came out this summer. I still haven't had a chance to read it, so I'm hoping to get to this one soon. And then off of Pango, I also ended up finding a copy of One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. I actually bought this book because of how much I loved it, and I just really wanted to own it because this is like one of my favorite romance books that I've read this year. I read it this summer and I loved it so much. So I really wanted to own a copy of this book, and I was able to find this one for pretty cheap on Pango. I think Pango is such a great place to find used books for like a good price because Pango is like a community of people who are like selling books like in the bookish community. So you're just buying books from other readers, and it's a great way to sell books that you're getting rid of as well. So I would highly recommend checking out Pango to get books. I also ended up buying a copy of The Raven Boys from Pango. I found this for $4 and I decided to buy this because I did actually read The Raven Boys a number of years ago now. Like I want to say I read this book like 10 years ago and I gave it 3 stars and I thought it was just fine. But the more that I reflect on my reading and like how much my taste has changed as a reader throughout the years, I am so convinced that if I read The Raven Boys now that I would like it so much more. So I kind of want to save this book for a potential future reading project of mine where I like revisit books that I read 10 years ago and kind of see if I still feel the same about it. And in that video, I want to read books like this that I kind of gave like mid ratings, but then I also want to read books that I loved back then to see if I still feel the same, because for some reason I'm convinced that I'm gonna love The Raven Boys now, so I'm glad I was able to pick up this copy. I also, while my cousins were in town, I ended up going to a bookstore in Seattle. I went to the Queen Anne Book Company, that's the one that I visited before, and I ended up buying 2 horror books while I was there. One of the books I bought was Breathe In, Bleed Out, and this is one that I actually just recently read for a reading vlog. This one is a slasher horror book that is very inspired by Scream, and I loved this so much. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I do think if you're a really big fan of Scream, I would highly recommend checking this one out. I thought it was so entertaining. And then I also ended up getting a copy of You Weren't Meant to Be Human. I was kind of unsure if I wanted to read this one because this is a horror book that involves a lot of like body horror and it involves like pregnancy. So I wasn't sure if this was something that I wanted to read, but it's been getting such good reviews. And then also look at those red sprayed edges. Like it was just so stunning that I couldn't walk away from it. So here I am. I have a copy of this book. I'm probably going to try to read this in the month of October just because I feel like that would be the perfect time of year for me to read it. So hopefully I'll be getting to this one very soon. I also ended up buying myself a copy of Pocket Knife Kitty by Shannon Riley. I recently read this during that reading vlog where I read a bunch of horror novellas in 48 hours, and this was the only 5-star that I had. Like I absolutely loved this horror novella, and I'm so glad that I own a physical copy of this because of how much I loved it. I would definitely recommend checking this one out. This one also has a lot of like body stuff that was like really tough to read, but I also think if you love the movie It Follows, I think you would absolutely love this book. I also ended up picking up a copy of Count My Lies. This is one that I found at one of my local thrift stores. I literally found this there for like $4, and it's like a book of the month copy of this book and it's in perfect condition. And I decided to pick up this book because this is like one of my favorite thrillers that I've read so far this year. So I was just so happy to find it there. And then also at one of my local used bookstores, I ended up finding a copy of Hunted by Darcy Coates. I know that I recently just read a Darcy Coates book and I gave her another low rating and I'm starting to feel like maybe she's not the author for me. But I did find this at my used bookstore for only $6 and I was like, you know what? I've heard a lot of really great things about this one specifically. So I decided to pick it up anyway, and I hope that this will be one that I actually do enjoy. And then I also picked up a copy of The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. This one is actually the sequel to Interview with a Vampire, and I wanted to pick up this one because I eventually do want to make another reading vlog where I read a lot of like vampire books. And because in the first round of that video, I read Interview with a Vampire and I ended up liking it so much, I thought it would be fun in the follow-up video to include the sequel to that book. I am a little intimidated by this though because this book is nearly 500 pages. Like holy shit, why is it so long? But I'm also excited for this one because I've heard from so many people that this book is actually even better than Interview with a Vampire. Like everybody says the sequel is even better. So it does make me excited and curious to check out this one. I usually in my book hauls, I love to include like my library haul at the end of the video just because I do like to, you know, try and encourage you to like use your local libraries more. Especially now, I feel like it's more crucial than ever to use your local libraries. But I do have like the smallest library haul right now at the moment. I actually just went back to the library yesterday and I dropped off like so many of my library books that I had checked out. But right now I have these 2 checked out. I have Killer on the Road by Stephen Graham Jones. This one is actually going to be due so soon though, and so I'm not sure if I'm going to get the chance to read this before it's due, but this one is really cool because it's the Killer on the Road on this side and then you flip it and it's The Babysitter Lives, and both of the stories go until about the halfway point and then you flip the book and read the other one. Like how cool is that? And then I also have Battle of the Bookstores. This one is a romance that just sounds so cute. It says we follow 2 bookstore managers who are opposites in every way and they find themselves competing for the same promotion. Oh my god, this sounds like everything that I've ever needed in my life, and it's just, oh my god, it's so cute. The cover's so cute. I'm obsessed. I've also heard really good things about this one, so I hope that I can get to this one before it's due to the library. All right, well that is the book haul that I have for you today. I know it was exceptionally large. I swear I try to only make these book haul videos like once every other month, but then I feel like by waiting that long, I just like accumulate so many things and then it's just like a massive book haul. I can't even begin to tell you, I'm so excited to read so many of these books. You'll have to let me know if there's anything in particular in this book haul that really caught your eye, like something that you added to your TBR. Definitely let me know all of the things, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!